And welcome to a new episode of More Than Dice. I'm Gonzo. Right below me is my partner in crime, John. And in the corner, that is not Kathy. Maybe a better looking, but don't tell her that. That is Leo from Para-Bellum Wargames. For our episode based on their new game coming out, Conquest. As you know, we are not doing any pre-ramble today because we have an 8-hour time difference between ourselves and Leo, and to help this guy out, we decided to go a little early. John, what episode are we on, by the way?
I have no idea.
Oh, man.
I mean, I missed the last episode. You guys remember that?
You're supposed to tell us all this stuff. When Kathy is not here, you're supposed to take up the slack.
Oh, that's supposed to be me? I got to take up the slack? Oh,
yes, you have to take up the slack whenever Kathy's not here. That's just part of the job. I'm going to guess that we're on 76.
Gave me homework and then also got to pick up the slack?
Yeah.
Gosh, you are killing me.
We are on episode 76.
My gosh.
As you noticed, we are doing, we have someone that says already saying hi to you, Leo. Syromishi? Syromiesi.
I'm sorry, that's, can you repeat that?
Syromishi? Syromi.
Syromishi, my last name.
Well, that's the one saying Leo.
Yeah. Oh no, it's Leandros, my full name, my first name, and Mavrokefalos, my last name. So.
Correct, but we have someone on Twitch that's already saying hi to you.
There you go, someone saying hi.
Oh, hi back. Perfect. Thank you so much. First of all, I know you told me that you guys usually do it in the afternoon U.S. time. Mm-hmm. I appreciate it so much that you guys are doing it earlier. I mean, I'm really stoked about being on your guys' podcast, talking about everything that is Conquest, right? And you told me how it would be great to do it during your time because we answer like live questions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked you guys to do, maybe we could do a recorded like a preamble. I was a little disappointed because I really wanted to answer these live questions, but of course, because it would be 3:00 in the morning here, it would be very difficult to. But I'm very happy we're doing it this way. So hi to everybody on Twitch. Hi to everybody, and please send all of your questions. We'll be happy to answer that.
We'll get some of our viewers probably won't be here because it's early in the morning, but if we get any other ones on Facebook or anything, we'll definitely send them to you. Starting off, we got to go with what we're doing today. John, what's your drink of choice tonight? I should say this morning.
This morning, yeah. Well, as a responsible adult, I'm only going with the Maryland Moonshine Sweet Apple Pie. You know, I'm not starting with the hard stuff or anything.
No, not the hard stuff. It's like what proof is that?
It's only 90 proof.
Myself, given that it's Greek Easter here, I'm going to say professionally, I'm going to say that right now it's just water. Gotcha. On a personal level, I'm going to say that before that it wasn't water.
It wasn't water.
So this is the only thing I'm going to say at this point.
I am working on a Boulevard Chocolate Ale. I've had it before. I had one yesterday while I was playing Conan Exiles. And so we did have some celebrity pass away. From what I understand, the lady that played Mama on Everyone Loves Raymond passed away. And somebody else, but I can't remember. Don't sue me.
The Globetrotter?
I think there was a Globetrotter that passed away, but I can't remember.
You're killing me. I didn't hear either of these, but it's been a crazy week. So
it has been. There has been a lot of stuff going on. No, I don't know. Can't remember because there are some people that passed away a long time ago, but I guess not.
So I tried to back you up. I was Googling celebrities that passed today. I was trying to back you up there. I didn't find anything.
I don't see anything recent, but in any case.
That's okay. To all those people, and for people that are listening and watching this early in the morning, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. We have a lot of questions and a lot of things to go over today, but we also need to thank our sponsors.
Yep.
We need to thank Tectonic Crest Studios. Dan, we love you. He has given us some stuff to give away. I will probably paint something up probably next week or the week after. Give it away on stream. Also, Mechanica Studios for helping host us and selling some of our products, guys. And you should have a link come up there and pretty soon that will show up about where you can buy some cool things from us. And also for Muse on Minis, where you will get a cool little code to get 10% off everything that you buy at their store using the More Than Dice discount code. For everybody here. And thanks for joining us, Leo. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you a lot. And again, thank you so much for doing your show earlier. I understand it's an inconvenience. But you know, I'm really happy to be here with you guys. Like we were saying before, and that's something that's I always like to say in podcasts, that we're all part of the same community, and I came from the same community, right? The fact that we're making a game and the fact that we're promoting a game does not change the fact that we're gamers. It doesn't change the fact that we like the same things, and it doesn't change the fact that we love the miniatures we grew up with and all these games that we played together, right? So it's a wonderful opportunity, not only for myself, but I think for Para-Bellum as well, to be able to be represented in your guys in podcasts like this. So thank you again for having us.
We appreciate
thank
it.
you for coming on. It actually seems like your game is a labor of love because it is kind of a love letter to the old Warhammer Fantasy.
I'll tell you what. Gameplay wise, and I think as we talk about it and discuss about it, you'll see that when it comes to the rules, it is very different.
Oh yeah,
and I will explain how. But when it comes to the lore, the art, the craftsmanship behind the miniatures, right? All these are really exactly like you said, like a labor of love towards the style of wargaming we all grew up with and grew to love, right? This we all grew up. I mean, before there were machine guns and tanks and flying spaceships and so on, we were killing dragons, right? We were killing zombies, like warriors of evil and dragons, right? And so we really want to pay homage to that. When it comes to, I mean, as we go, we're going to talk about the rules more. But when it comes to the actual gameplay, I think that it's a little bit about like old meets new. We departed a lot from old tropes of the past. Like, for example, let me just skip very briefly through. Like, for example, we don't play with phases anymore, right? So there are many games that, you know, phases would revolve around any sort of motion on the table, like moving through the three-dimensional space that is given to us. Then there would be one that would be a phase, let's say, in which we would dedicate to ranged combat of whatever kind. And then there usually would be a phase in which we would dedicate it to melee combat and like this kind of hand-to-hand process. We don't do that. What we do is that before every turn begins, right? So every regiment in our game has a card. We call them command cards. So every regiment that is on the table or about to come in, right, has a command card, and we take these command cards and we arrange them in a deck that we call the command stack. Now the deck is a face down deck that you choose the order of, right? So, and essentially the card that is on top you draw and you activate first, and then the second one, and so on, right? It's that you choose the order in which you're going to be drawing the cards. So when you begin the turn, you make your deck, and then your opponent does the same. You roll off. You see who goes first, and then let's say Gonzo, you go first. You will draw your first card, and you would activate that regiment. You would take 2 actions with that regiment. Actions could be whatever you want. You could be to march and then march again. That's actually the only thing you can do twice. You can charge and attack. Actually, attack clash, as we call it, is different than charging, right? Charge does not entail the actual hitting of the opponent. You could move and charge, but at the cost of attacking, right? So you can engage someone that is further, but you cannot damage them in melee combat, right? So you do whatever combination of actions you want, and then once you're done, and your opponent goes and draws their top card. So what happens is that we predetermine the order of our activations. And then for every activation, we take the 2 action, and once we're done, our opponent goes. So that's we depart there in a big way from the old-fashioned fantasy war game.
I wanted to step back just from the rules for a second and the discussion, because Para-Bellum Wargames, who are y'all? And not to say because y'all are fairly new, because I actually originally met y'all and at not this year's Adepticon, the Adepticon before that is where I met the team. So I mean it's kind of interesting because y'all are. I mean, I don't know how new y'all are. But, I mean, how new is Para-Bellum Wargames?
So, when it comes to ourselves personally, we've been in the industry and worked for major distributors in South Europe, and when it comes to distributors of Magic the Gathering, and in retail and in distribution for years now. So when it comes to us, we've been in the industry for a while. Now, when it comes to Para-Bellum is a company that started really surfacing and going to the expos for the last 3 years. So it makes sense that you met us a couple of years before, because one of the major things that we're trying to do is that we wanted to come out and we wanted to prove to people that this is, first of all, that Conquest and Para-Bellum is not a project, is a world. Conquest is a game we're building, and is a game that is here to stay, right? And the only way to drive this point home is to make sure that we come to your communities, that we fly across the pond to come to your shows and show you that every year you're going to find us there. Every year you're going to be able to find me or the lead writer or my colleagues and ask us questions that really worry you about the game or things you want to know, right? So this is something that although we launched this June 20th, we want to make sure that you can always find us. And in order to prove this point home, we've been attending your guys' shows for like about 2 years now.
Well, you just also finished up a large trek across the United States and starting along like California to Adepticon, pretty much. Because I didn't know about it, or I would have gone up to St. Louis or wherever it was and would have joined y'all. Because I was like, I just noticed that at the end of it, oh, y'all are, dang it, I missed it. Or I would have driven up because I have a lot of friends in St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean, we were a little bit lower than St. Louis. We were in the greater area because we visited Miniature Market, and then we visited Aesop's Treasury in Farmington. So that we had a great response in St. Louis, and we really appreciated. We were very happy to see how store owners were very eager to have us and meet us in person. But I think what's important is because you're right. We started from San Francisco that we landed on. We visited some of our distributors, and then we visited as many retailers as we could. So we drove from San Francisco, actually from Santa Clara, right, all the way to Chicago, and that's about 2,500 miles, if I'm not mistaken. It took us quite a few days, and the reason we're doing these kind of trips is because we really want to get to meet you guys in person. It doesn't matter whether you guys are content creators, retail stores, just your everyday gamer, your casual gamer. I'd like to meet you. And this is something I'm more than I wasn't at home for a month. Right, one of the things we said is that we were living off our suitcases for a month, but we do this because we want to tell you, and we think that actions speak a lot louder than words. We want to tell you that we're not just saying we were part of the same community. I want to come to where your community meets. I want to be at the same store that you play, and I want to play a game with you. Yep. And that's actually why we put ourselves in the process of doing this trip to begin with.
Because I know that because I recently have put in my pre-order because my local store and my local owner is very excited. He likes regimental battle games a lot more than anything else. And when you release the rules online, him and I got on there and looked at the rules and discussed it and, started talking about it and stuff. And he's super, super excited about it. And he's ready to do stuff with it as soon as he gets it, choosing factions and everything that's going on. This world is a different world than normal, than your typical fantasy type. I put my quote around fantasy because you've got your medieval standard knights and the 100 Kingdoms, but you have this weird alien race that's
right.
all crazy about it. I know there's a lot of story and a lot of fluff behind this, but can you give us a breakdown? Because you've got more than just these two factions coming out, and you've got more coming out soon, which I'm trying to see if I can get you to come to a convention in November when you have a new release. I'm winking at the camera that I would like for you to come to Warfare Weekend to show off those new releases and stuff. But you're going to have more than just these two after a bit. But what is the... And I hate to narrow this down into, can you give us a short version of what your world is and what it is like?
Definitely. Okay, so let me start with the question about the convention. You're telling me. I'll be more than happy to. Please send me all the details, and I can sincerely promise you that I'll do the best I can to visit you. I mean, we travel to the U.S. 3 or 4 times a year for expos and conventions. So, if I can come, be sure that I will. So send me all the details, and I'll make sure I'll try and do my best.
I will give you everything needed.
So that's when it comes to the about the convention. Now about the world. Yes, you're right. The world, it goes very far, and there are a lot of stories to be released. Actually, a little bit before I answer that, we have a little trilogy of short stories called Nepenthe. Nepenthe is a series of stories that covers why the 100 Kingdoms and the Spires. The Spires is the alien race you mentioned. Why these are in conflict, and how their conflict intensifies, right? So this is the first. You can find it in the Watch News section in our website.
Mm-hmm.
And now we started a second trilogy that's called The Ardent. It covers a little bit about the society and the story of the Dragom, our third faction. Dragom come out in August. So it has to do about our third faction and about their society. And I believe you're really going to like it because they depart from the logic of your traditional dwarves, right? Mm-hmm. The Dragom, actually, fun fact, in the lore, they killed the dwarves. And we're going to talk all about it. It's an interesting story. Okay, so about the world of Conquest, it's called, first of all, the world is called Ea.
Okay.
Right, and so a little bit about to understand each faction. So let's start with the 100 Kingdoms, right? So the 100 Kingdoms are your typical medieval humans. Now, long story short, and I'm not going to get very much into detail because we're going to be releasing a lot of new stuff coming up closer to release. But what I want to tell you is this. So the 100 Kingdoms used to be one united empire. Now, this united empire had a god named Haslia. Now, Haslia was their, let's say, patron god, but also a god that fed through humanity, from humanity. I'm sorry, excuse my English, my grammar.
You're fine.
Yeah, a few mistakes here. Anyways, so Haslia fed from the humans, and it came to a point that the humans realized that this relationship with their god Haslia was not sustainable anymore. Right? It was a mix of arrogance, but also they were pragmatic about it. They could do more without Haslia over their head. They could expand, and they thought they could rule the world. It's a little mix of objectivity and also an arrogance, if you want. And they had the plan to rid themselves of Haslia, to break this bond between them and their patron god. And so they succeeded. The problem is, though, that as Haslia was falling down from the heavens, and actually we have an artwork in the gallery in our website, that Haslia comes down from his heavenly kingdoms. He decided that, you know something, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to take you down with me. And he literally grabs his heavenly kingdom and just brings it crushing down upon this empire that the humans have built. Now, one of the lesser goddess named Ninua. Ninua is more of a god of life and fertility. Uh, she found it. She tried to save as many humans as possible. I'm sorry, it weren't many, but she did what she could. She saved some people, but at the cost of her own life. The thing is, though, and the problem is, though, that a lot of the nobility, a lot of the lordship, and a lot of the let's say, high ranks of nobility, right, were wiped out from this cataclysmic event of Haslia dying, and along with him driving his heavenly kingdom down. And so we're at a state right now with the 100 Kingdoms. We're at a, let's say, an I'm Napoleon kind of state, right? Where everyone comes up and says, my third cousin of a fourth uncle, whatever, it was used to be an emperor. So, I'm the next in line. And then, another lord would be like, no, I'm the next in line. No, I'm the emperor. No, I should be emperor, right? And then we go back into this very basic feudal sort of understanding, right, of relationships between the human kingdoms.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot more than 100, but 100 right now are the notable ones, hence
Gotcha.
the name, right?
Gotcha.
So we're at a state in which everybody's like, no, I'm Napoleon. No, I'm Napoleon. I'm the emperor. I should be the emperor. And and like everyone is trying to, it's either out of ignorance or out of trying to take advantage of the situations, that everyone is right now trying to do the things that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise, right? As long as the highest ranks of nobility and the emperor would be alive, these long cousins, like, these long lines of long heritage, like sort of a nobility, they would never see anything close to a throne, and now they see an opportunity. So they're at the point in which they attempt to create powerful kingdoms that one day they will rule the rest. So they're at a point in which they're trying to confederate and become an ally with each other, and now there will be, you will see in the lore, for example, kings. For example, in one of the videos that we released, right, that one of the videos featuring the story of Nepenthe. The story of Nepenthe is actually the storyline behind our basic box. Now, it's the basic box you're going to be finding throughout the first wave of release, June 20th. Right, it's about, like we said, about the spires in the 100 Kingdoms. So the Nepenthe stories talk about Frederick. Frederick is one of our main characters, whose father used to be a king of 11 kingdoms. So now we're starting, like, they're starting forming these kind of confederations, right? Now a king would be a king of 5 or 6 or 11, let's say, kingdoms, right? So slowly they start to recreate what used to be an empire, but of course they're far from it. There's a lot of civil strife. There's a lot of politics. So the 100 Kingdoms right now, they're at a point of trying to bring themselves back together, become once again the powerful faction they were, and now, since they've rid themselves from Haslia, they're trying to become what they thought they would be, but at the same time they have a lot of civil strife. They have a lot of fighting on their interior, right? So this is what pulls them apart. On the other hand, we have the Spires, the second faction. So the 100 Kingdoms and the Spires are the first two factions that will be coming out June 20th, right? And the Spires is one of the main factions. And so now the Spires, you show their artwork, right? You see that they seem a little alien. Now, what's very important about them is actually these are our take on elves.
Okay.
It's very important to remember that it's very important for us to depart from the usual tropes of, like, fantasy writing. We love elves, we like dwarves, but we, at the same time, we want to create our own world. And in our world, our factions are their own. So the spires now, they come from a different world, like you said, and in that sense, they're alien. They're not alien in the sci-fi sense. They're alien to air,
Gotcha.
right? They're
Yep.
not from air. So they were pushed out of the world. We're not going to say from whom yet. Our lead writer is going to kill me, and actually, as the plot line continues on, you guys are you're gonna read about it, and in with a lot more information that's going to be coming out soon. But what happens is that so they're pushed off from their world. They're in air, and the way they work is that they create these huge spires, right? These huge biological, I'll
Towers.
say buildings, but they're not really buildings. They're a mixture of something that grows and built at the same time. The spires are a lot about biomancy, the science of creating form. So they create these huge spires, and actually this is where they take their name from, because the Hundred Kingdoms, they named them as such. So they named them the spires, and they call the spirers. And so their prerogative is to harness and amass as many resources and biomass as they can, create an army, a force powerful enough to go back and retake their home. Period. That's their home, right? And in that sense, they're not messing with the affairs or the business of the Hundred Kingdoms because they're evil. They do it simply because their only major goal is to take back their homelands, and they don't care who they have to hurt in order to do that.
Gotcha.
For them, the end justify the means, and it doesn't matter if their harness of biomass and resources is literally killing their lands around their spires. They don't care about humans. They don't care about Dragom. They don't care about anyone else other than taking back their home. The actual spires are immortal, and when you're immortal, and this is something we really want to capture, is that when you're immortal, you start losing grasp on what life really is.
Gotcha.
Right? When the greatest enemy of life is always time, because no matter what happens, at some point, you're going to be time is going to take its toll, and at some point you're going to get old. Something's going to happen, and you're going to pass away. When you rid yourself from that, you lose context when it comes to life. And this is very important for two reasons. One is because the spires themselves, there are only very few. They're not that many. They're not enough to make an army, but what they do is they bioengineer their own soldiers. So, for example, if you see our force-grown drones, one of the mainstay troops of the spires, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that they have their shield, they have their spear, and you'll notice in their head they have this weird headdress. Actually, that's a little hook that they use because they grow them in vats, and then they use conveyor belts to store them and hook them, and they just lay dormant there. They have no immune system, no nothing. They're made to be cheap. And so they activate them. They go to war. After a week, a couple weeks, they either die from combat or from a flu. It really doesn't matter. Right? And then after a battle, they take everything back. They recycle everything and make new ones. Spires don't see life in the same way others see it, right? They see drones are living beings, but they see them as creations, and they're very basic creations that only have instincts. They have ferromancers. So ferromancers and biomancers, we said, are the main, let's say, scientific case of the spires. Ferromancers are in the science of controlling behavior, whereas biomancers are in the science of controlling form. So biomancers, for example, would tell them to go fight, and the drones, they could have broken limbs. It doesn't matter. They are compelled by they're ferromantically compelled to keep fighting against all of their basic instincts, right? And the spires just don't get it. They don't care, but they're very corporate in their logic. But at the same time, they're not evil. They're just a species that lost track of what life is simply because they don't understand death in the same way.
Now those two are the ones that are coming out right at the beginning. You have two others that are coming out, which is the Nords and the Nords are kind of barbaric Norse types.
I'll tell you. So the third faction that's coming out, the Nord's coming out in November. So
Okay.
we're going out for a Nordvember sort of vibe here. Yeah,
November.
it was too good of a pun to not use. You know, it was too good of a. I'm gonna let you in something. You're right. When it comes to marketing decisions, there are puns and then there's actual strategy. Pun is usually November is usually a lot better. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's right. Nord's coming out in November. So let me tell you first about the third faction, the Duegom, that come out in August.
Mm-hmm.
So now the Duegom is regards to everybody else, is an ancient faction, right? As you would expect from any dwarfish sort of archetype. The difference is that the world of Ea used to be ruled by dragons.
Uh-huh.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that crucial to the world of AI is the concept of is something, let's say, of four elements, but not elements in the sense of the ancient Greek sense, like not elements in the earth, wind, and so on. Or some of the elements in AI come very close to the four horsemen of apocalypse in a certain way. One of the horsemen and one of the elements is war. We're gonna the other one is Conquest, where the game is named from, and we're going to be revealing which the other ones as well. But a major one is war. Now, war was imprisoned in the core of Ea. Now, here the stories are going to be coming out, but it's from dragons and also some other actors that are taking place in there. We're going to be revealing that soon. Now, war. One of the reasons that war was imprisoned was simply to maintain a sort of balance in the world of Ea. What happened is that when dragons had ownership over Ea and had most of the power, they created the Dwegom to be their slaves. Right? So the Dwegom were there and the dwarfs were there as well as slaves as well. Now, the Dwegom, though, they were not as satisfied from the fact that they were simply these craftsmen, like these artisan slaves, right? Yes, they got the opportunity to create aesthetic masterworks of masonry and all these things, but they wanted to be something greater. They wanted to be something more than what they were. They had ambition to become their own thing and become their own masters. So they decided that they had to do something to go against the dragons. And they extended this opportunity to the dwarves, their let's say cultural cousins. The dwarves denied. They didn't want to take the risk. They didn't want to go against the dragons. The dragons were, powerful after all. So the Dragoma, what they did is that they decided to dig as deep as they could and find the chamber of war, the chamber in which War himself was imprisoned. So they found War and they attempted to free War. They failed. But in the process of trying to free War, they consumed part of War. And in that moment, in that instant, part of the essence of War started being released into, first of all, through them, right, in which they found the strength and determination and will to defeat the dragons and kill them, and actually not just kill them, but now out of spite and out of revenge, turn them into their slaves. So you'll see that lesser dragons, the drakes, are now actually part of the Dragom roster. One of the miniatures you guys are going to be seeing, and actually there are photos on the internet we showed during Adepticon this year, was what we call Hellbringer Drake, that is literally a drake with two huge flamethrowers on its back.
Yeah, we saw that when we posted that one. I was like, damn it, now you're making me think about not playing Spires, because if I could ride a dinosaur into battle with, flame cannons.
Believe me, you're gonna get some crazy stuff coming up.
You said there's Nords coming out in November. We had one of our viewers are asking, are we going to expect a new faction every 3 months after the Nords, or are y'all taking a break?
That's a good question. So we are one of the reasons. So let me actually give a little bit of an answer, to cover some other things, because I think it will benefit for the benefit of our audience as well. Is that the first four factions come very close to each other, right? Almost every 3 months, as our member in the audience noted. We're not going to have the same frequency after that. We're going to be looking at a lot of factions. That's true. But we want to make sure that within a year we populate to the best of our ability the four first factions, because it's good to bring a lot of factions quickly, but we want to make sure that the factions that are already out get updates and get a lot of releases, right?
Yeah.
Make sure we put out a lot of stuff. So we're gonna bring out Nords in November. I mix my words. And then after that, we're gonna make sure we keep populating the already existing factions. And once we are in a good point in which every faction has about 10 to 11 entries released, we're gonna go for the fifth and then the sixth faction. So it's more about cycles of releasing factions, populating them, and then releasing more factions and then populating them, rather than just releasing a lot of factions without a lot of content.
Gotcha. Is there any spoiler about any other factions besides these that you want to go, or are you still on hush hush before your?
I'd like to give you a really nice one.
Okay.
It's not the fifth faction. It's one of the factions coming, right?
Okay.
So I told you I told you how Haslia came down from his heavenly kingdoms and was essentially shattered. His essence was destroyed and shattered. Now, when the essence of a god is shattered, scattered throughout the lands, something within the lands become its vessel. Now, I'm not talking about the trope. I'm not necessarily talking about dead coming alive. But what I'm saying is that imagine a faction in which every member of that faction is a vessel of Haslia. And then the more that die, the less members, the less vessels the essence of Haslia has to be distributed throughout, so they become stronger.
Oh, that's legit.
So there is a balance to be struck there, lore-wise and game-wise. That's a little hint about how they're going to play.
Yeah.
They're going to be a lot, and they're going to be weak. But the more you kill, the less vessels are on the table, the less vessels the essence of Haslia has to be distributed throughout. So you always have to find a balance between killing enough to be safe, but not killing too many to make them powerful.
Gotcha. Let's go over to let's talk about the miniatures and stuff, because we got some time and we want to go over the rules. Your miniatures, are they all going to be in plastic?
That's right.
All in plastic.
Let me tell you this. So the plastic kit that we're going to start, the 2-player starter set, is launching June 20th. It's going to have 75 plastic miniatures. It's a 2-faction starter set. It has 24 men-at-arms, 12 crossbowmen, 3 knights, and a noble lord mounted on a horse. And then on the other side, it has a spire abomination, 3 brutes, and 24 force-grown drones, and a ferromancer. Now, everything there is plastic. Okay. Also, you're going to be finding 6 thematic objective markers that are going to be unique to that box. That's for the scenarios that have, markers and objective play and so on. And so that's in the box there. Everything is in plastic. Now, what you should expect is that every regiment you get from us is plastic.
Gotcha.
The characters... Some characters are going to be in resin. To be very honest with you, mainly because we rather spend time in you having your units in plastic than not release as many units to put time on single figures being plastic. So we want to make sure that everything in your army is plastic, and then if 2 or 3 miniatures, the characters are resin, we're okay with this. Yeah. And later on, they're going to be plastic as well. But the characters in the starter set are plastic.
Gotcha.
Sweet.
Let's kind of, we're going to start hitting some questions on the basic game and everything. Everything that we've seen coming out recently has always been I go, you go, I go, you go. Everybody activates everything, and then all of a sudden,
it's gone. Maybe.
Yeah, and everything works. And your game, for the most part, because I've read the rules and I've gone from the top part and the bottom, that most of the rules and everything's, for the most part, played on a 48 by 48.
That's right.
And not a, there's one scenario that's played on a 48 by, a 6 by 4.
That's right.
Now, on a 4x4, which I think is great, because that right there means you can have a lot of people playing. You don't have to have a crap ton of terrain. But how much terrain should there be on the board on a 4x4?
Right. Yeah, that's okay. So now there's a reason. First of all, there's a reason you found two different table sizes on the rules. We play the game on a 4x4, but the game will also play on a 4x6. Now, what you should expect, though, and that's very important, is that the scenarios in the rulebook are scenarios that will help players get acquainted and get used to the game. There's going to be a pack that's going to be that's going to be explaining how we play tournament play.
That's one of my other
questions. So there are going to be some gameplay differences when it comes to these scenarios. For example, you'll notice in the competitive scenarios, the lights will not be able to capture objectives. Okay. And that makes it very different when it comes to the actual list making, right? Mm-hmm. Or you'll see that depending on what people like, we may also create a tournament pack that also plays on a 4x6 for people that want to play larger battles. Now, the main importance for us is that, like we said, we're part of the same community. And we know that not all communities enjoy a game in the same way. There are other communities that simply like playing more points. There are other communities that simply like the different table size. So we want to make sure that we create two distinct types of play style that people can choose from. That's both 4x4 and 4x6. Now, for the 4x4, 2 to 3 terrain pieces is optimal. And in the rule book, you're also going to find a lot of archetypes, right? A lot of rules for terrain. You choose the ones that apply to your terrain. You can say, for example, that one is hindering and obscuring terrain. That's fine. But for example, you may have created a little piece of terrain that is a marsh, right? Mm-hmm. Now that's a hindering terrain, but that's not obscuring. It doesn't obscure line of sight.
Correct.
Right. So you choose the rules that apply for the terrain you've already created. Mm-hmm. But for the 4x4, I think that a good 2 to 3 terrain pieces is great. And personally, I would mix within these 2 or 3. I would put one building and 2 different terrain kind of style. Terrain pieces.
Roughly how big of terrain pieces are we talking about? Because on a 4x4, if you have roughly 2 pieces to 3 pieces of terrain, if they're large size.
Yeah, I think. Let me think about it for a minute, because I'm used to centimeters. So
give us the centimeters. We've got computers that can help us change all that.
All right, okay.
I was going to reject
anything that is about 4 to 5 inches by 4 to 5 inches.
Okay.
Is a good piece. You could go a little larger as well, but I think if you want to put about 3 terrain pieces, I think a 5x5 would be good.
Okay. Because you don't
also, when it comes to terrain, it's very important to know that we're going to be working with MicroArt Studios, and we're going to be doing licensed terrain, right? Cool. Terrain that is specific to our factions.
Nice.
Legit.
Let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes of this, because this is where John excels. Because I'm typically, don't get me wrong, I like to play anything, but I usually play a lot of tournaments. And so I always look at things from a tournament point of view, and that's the reason why you said you're going to have a tournament packet. In that tournament packet, I'm sure you're going to have, hey, this is what this does, this is all the rules, and so on and so forth, and you'll have different things. But there are a lot of rules. I mean, the rules are free online, by the way, guys, so you go download them. It's about a 105-page thing that gives you, everything on how to play the game.
And they're going to be updated very soon. We have a very beta version right now, but when we get closer to release, you're going to get the full version.
Yeah, but I mean,
everything for free though.
Yeah. what I like is regimental battle games are coming back. I guess you want to say that because they've been disappeared for a while, and everybody's been doing skirmish size, and I like regimental battle games too, and that's really one of the reasons why I like this. Plus, I'm a huge Spire fan because I just love the models, and so one of the things that y'all are doing is when you do wounds, you're taking off models off the base or taking a complete base off once it's gone. And so regiment sizes can shrink. Are regiment sizes able to grow? Are you able to put wounds back and make those sizes bigger and better?
That's a very good question, and one of the main things in Conquest, since you've read the rules, you also see about the resolve rules and how morale means that every time you take a wound, you may take additional wounds. That's because in Conquest, killing a model, right, it does not really represent death of the model. It means injury, disheartening, running away, being injured, dying, right? It means so many different things. So sometimes a character is able to heal a wound and actually restore previously lost stands, in the sense that they got a second wind, right? They were re-encouraged to join the battle. So a death does not always mean that they're dead, right? Wounds in the game is a generic term to just like explain to explain, like, it's easily explained in game terms, but in lore wise and theme wise, it means it's about all these different things. And so usually when we heal something, stance can come back up to the original size of the regiment. So far, we do not have a faction that has a synergy that allows you to bring more than your original starting size.
Gotcha.
But I can imagine some future factions that the lore would perhaps allow this. It will come down to balancing.
Oh, 100%. That's always the key thing that whenever we talk to people is like, guys, the reason why this is here is because of a balance issue, not because they just want to make this Uber. There's a reason behind everything that's going in there, and a lot of people just got to learn to deal with it. Excuse me as I burp from this beer. It's really good beer, by the way.
That's fine. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's good beer, though.
Oh, it's amazing. John, what you got?
Well, first I would say I liked how a lot of the rules are very clear. The healing rules are actually really clear when you read that section on how guys come back. That's cool. The first and biggest question I had was, why did you guys choose the roll low rather than the roll high, which is sort of the intuitive way to do it?
There is a little. First of all, why not? We like the difference. First of all, it's really something. I'm going to be very honest with you. Some of the things that happen in game design are made for a reason, and we worked with River Horse Studios for this game with Cavatore for this game. But there are some other things that we just like. I mean, we're doing our own thing, so we roll low here, right? Oh. But in all seriousness, we found a little bit of cognitive dissonance when it comes to the reading of rules, right? There's if you have to roll high, it means that your stats will be low and you want to roll over them. If you roll low, it means your stats are high. And it's a lot easier to understand how good a regiment or how good a game entity is by seeing high numbers on its stat page than having to understand how good it is by what you have to roll. So we eliminate a cognitive step from understanding whether something is good or bad by simply putting it right on its actual reference sheet, on its actual entry.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it is. It actually once it connects in your head, it's all good. It was just one of the weird things. I do like how your scenarios are not just kill the other army. I mean, you get some victory points in one of them for it, but that's not the main goal. The objective base, I do dig that. I'm trying to think of what else I had. I mean, it's a really good solid, as we like to call it, ranks and flanks game. I do like the alternating activations. That is something they haven't brought to that game yet. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's nowhere to go. You got such a good, solid rule set. I don't have a ton of questions on it.
I have one, and this comes from a tournament standpoint again. Since there is, and I don't want to say very little, but there is less terrain compared to some other games. And shooting is always considered very, very powerful in the game because, hey, if I don't have to get to you and I can kill you before you get to me, that's something that, tournament players will look at. Are in the back of your mind, are you concerned or are you looking at it and trying to make sure that range doesn't rule the game?
Actually, that's a very good question because this is something we've considered before. Let me tell you how we addressed it.
Okay.
Now, for example, if you see some of the, let's say, take the crossbowmen, right? The rules for the crossbowmen say, bars 1, that means they fire 1 shot per miniature. 20 inches range.
Okay.
Now, 20 inches is pretty far for a 48 by 48 inch table, right? But the thing is that 20 inches is the maximum range. It's not the effective range. Now, the effective range is half that. So effective range is 10. Now, when you fire within effective range, you fire your full amount of shots. So let's say 3 stands of crossbowmen would fire 12 shots.
Okay.
If you fire at over 10 inches, you fire only half of your shots. So that's only 6 shots.
Okay.
Now, so one thing is, first of all, you don't take additional losses from ranged shots, right? So ranged combat does not produce any additional morale wounds. You don't take a result from it.
Okay.
And the other thing is that effective ranges are usually low in order to incentivize ranged units to go to the flanks and fire within combat because you can fire in combat. But the thing is that exactly because a major part of the game is the way reinforcements come in, you push up a line of scrimmage almost that the rest of your army, the more you push it up, the rest of your army can come in from the sides. So your reinforcements come in from the sides. Now you put your ranged units at risk of being charged, but of course they gain from being able to fire their full shots from the flanks. So we allow ranged combat to be strong, but in the ways that ranged combat can be strong, you also have to take a lot of risks. So if you really want to take this powerful shot from the flank and decimate a unit, you perhaps will be able to do it, but you'll need a good unit and you will have to risk a countercharge next turn from a unit that just popped out from your flank. So there are a lot of things there, right? There are a lot of things that make the game, balance the game from its actual, down to its very core, to its very engine of the game, right? There are a lot of things. The 2 action system helps us a lot with balancing things like overpowered shooting or movement shenanigans. And we've seen that with a few tweaks, like for example, like I said, you don't take resolve tests from ranged combat, right? That's, like we said before, simply for the sake of balancing, for playing a good game.
Yeah.
Well,
and we feel at this point that shooting is at a very good point. It complements the game. It doesn't win you games. It complements them. And it complements them in a way that it's needed for your strategy, but you cannot play a full shooting army and expect to win.
And with Gonzo's expectation of tournament play, I assume a lot of the shooting units are going to be light units, and thus they won't be able to hold objectives, which incentivizes you to play other units as well, not just all guns, as I like to call it.
Yeah. Well, one of the very true things is that a lot of the good, even some of the expensive, some of the elite range units are light, and some of the other units there are range units that are medium and heavy. Right, but the difference is that they're short range.
Gotcha.
So
Javelins or something.
If you have a heavy range regiment, right, that you paid points for, and you just leaving it to the back to babysit an objective, Okay, yeah, you can do that, but you could have been a lot more cost effective about that and put a medium regimen that is a lot cheaper just to babysit the same objective. Like you're losing a lot from the strength you could bring into into combat. Or one of the other things is that if you find a medium range unit, perhaps they will not have the same range or the same range capacity as a light unit, as a sorry, as a yeah, as a light unit. But the light unit again will not be able to capture the objectives. So there are all this internal balance, all these that happens on the level of the rules rather than the faction itself.
Um,
Excellent.
I got one on here.
More, actually.
Okay, go ahead, because I have another one after this.
Yeah. So you have two defense stats. I just remembered. You have, the defense characteristic and the evasion characteristics. Seem weird to have two. I assume that's sort of a future proofing. You might have things that affect one more than the other, or only attack the one rather than the other, or both.
That's right. So defense is a broader term of explaining one's armor, toughness, ability, skill with armor. Evasion is, for the lack of a better term, is a means of either extreme agility of actually evading the hit entirely, or supernatural resilience that comes beyond one's simple weapon to armor sort of class. It has to do with things with auras that are beyond normal, right? So it has to do with things that disallow an attack to even connect with you to begin with. So in that sense, for example, one of the rules, cleave, works with defense and reduces defense, but it does not evasion. It does not reduce evasion. So yeah, there are things that hurt one, but not the other, and there will be things that hurt both.
All right, two things we haven't talked about, and I wanted to bring this up. The scenario, it says that regiments are going to be held in reserve. When are we going to see rules about what, because we have no unit rules specifically. We don't have, hey, the Abomination has these rules yet. We don't have a lot of detailed rules information. Because I look at it, all regiments are held back as reinforcements, which I think is a great thing because it means, pushing through and, the flow of battle is different. Why did you decide to do this instead of just, hey, I've employed my entire army? I play with my entire army.
I'll tell you why. Let's start a little bit about the rule overall. So in Conquest, we've made a very clear decision that is to every game starts with an empty table, no deployment, no nothing. At the very beginning, the first and second turn, your light forces, your light regiment come in, and their objective is to contest objectives they will not be able to capture, but they will be able to contest. And as they push up the field, they will push up a reinforcement line that then your medium units will be able to use on the third and fourth turn, and then your heavies will be able to use on the fifth and sixth, and so on, right? So everything, Conquest is a game in which your army starts from its vanguard and scouts all the way to its heavy hitting parts of the army. So it's a design decision to not deploy anything. One of the reasons being that by bringing your regiments throughout combat and throughout the battle, you have a game that, number one, have an ever-changing battle line because exactly things come from the side, and when you combine it with the I go you go system, you have a game that it's more about strategic foresight rather than who gets the flavor of the month kind of vibe.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's the combination of these two elements of the game that create let's say the circumstances we want in order for strategic foresight to be the main skill tested when playing Conquest rather than anything else. And we felt that strategic foresight was not something that was always tested when we were playing a war game.
True.
The last one, and we haven't touched it yet, Magic has
that's right.
always it's either or it's like, okay, or it's like, holy crap, I just lost half of my regiment because of, this spell that just totally wiped the crap out of me. Give us a little bit about magic, because that's, I missed
Yeah,
that.
okay, so actually, you're going to be very happy about what I have to tell you. Now, there are two things. So keep in mind, first of all, what we said about strategic foresight. And let's say a little bit about characters overall. Now, characters, first of all, like we said, we have no phases. So, by an extent of that, there's not going to be a dedicated magic phase. If magic is represented through abilities of the characters. Now, characters have their own cards within the command stack. They activate and they play with the regiment they're attached to, and they do whatever the regiment does. But when a character's card is drawn and hence activated, they have access to their own completely different list of activation of orders. One of these is magic. Magic is are used as abilities, so you will cast the spell you want to cast whenever you draw your mage's card. And there are a few important things. One important thing is the scaling characteristic. Simply, scaling is that the larger the regiment you're casting something onto is, the harder it is. Simply because it is not the same thing. You can augment 10 people with ease, but when these are 40 or 50 people, it becomes a lot harder. You have to expend a lot more energy. So the larger the target regiment is, whether that is friend or foe, the larger it is, the harder it becomes, and that's also a matter of protection for your own units, because when you want to cast a hex to an enemy unit, the larger it is, the harder it is for the caster to target them, and successfully cast a spell. But what's the most important thing, right, is that in Magic, you have once again to think strategically. If you think that that throughout my turn I'm gonna cast something very powerful, you should think beforehand and activate your spellcaster before mine. In that case, you're gonna be casting an anti-magic spell before I cast mine. So there are no innate auras, right? We don't play the game and suddenly it's my turn to cast something, so then you start rolling die. It's like, if you want to make sure I don't cast something, it will cost you initiative, and it will cost you initiative in the sense of where you're going to place your mages and what you're going to be playing and when, right?
Okay.
So if you want to make sure you prepare your magical defenses, you have to spend initiative and cast something before I do. So it all ties into the strategic foresight concept that we're using in Conquest. And Magic can be, once again, it augments the game. It gives it flavor. It works. Your army is supposed to work like a system. Not one part should completely override everything else. You win the game by combined arms, not by spamming one thing in particular. You having abilities and magical abilities helps you a lot. Shooting helps you a lot. Melee helps you a lot. It's your army is a system that you have to use in order to win. One thing will not give you the win.
That comes in my last question about this, is because in a lot of games, characters will rip apart things. You got so and so with his ass kicking sword of death magic, and can just rampage through the battlefield. I'm sure you're gonna have characters, because it does say that in your rule book, that you're gonna have named guys, like Stompy Foot McBadass, and he's gonna give your unit or your army something. How are characters gonna be handled in this, so they don't just walk around the battlefield kicking the crap out of everything?
I'm gonna start by telling you one thing. First of all, a character, like we said, is attached to a regiment. If the regiment dies, the character dies.
Okay.
A character cannot play on their own. And what's important is, in Conquest, a character is as strong as their faction allows them to be. A human character can be very skilled in fighting. They can be an expert duelist, but they're humans, and hence they cannot take on like a giant simply by virtue of having a super magical sword. Right, and we have characters be like we said, as strong as they're allowed to be by their own nature. Like it has to make sense in their lore how strong they are. So in the 100 Kingdoms, you're gonna find some excellent duelists, right? And you're gonna find some, but you're gonna see that the 100 Kingdoms as a faction excels more in things like using the right tools at the right time and having good commanders to allow you to bring the right thing at the right place, rather than having this one character that is able to just simply cut through swathes of enemy infantry and destroy armies on their own. Once again, it's all about creating a system and not about creating one super strong part of your army.
Okay, that goes into my next question because the assassin, the Spire assassin, he is a single model, so he's pretty much like an attachment into a unit.
That's right. You'll see that every character unlocks other regiments, unlocks a warband. What that we say.
Uh-huh.
So every character has to come into the table by unlocking one of their mainstay regiments, and they have to come into attached into one of their mainstay regiments. So a mimetic assassin, for example. Actually, this is the miniature I'd like to send you. The mimetic assassin comes in, joined into the force-grown drones or medium clones or the units that they unlock. So they come, of course, throughout the game. They can seek new escort. It's the name of the role, and they can jump to a different regiment. But they will never play on their own unless later on. Perhaps that might be a spoiler. Unless they are classified as monsters, that perhaps could be way too huge for them to be attached to something. But once again, they are as strong as their faction allows them to be, and that's lore wise and play wise, they're costed and balanced appropriately.
Question from the audience: when can we expect access to the online army builder, which I think is amazing? Anybody that gives me an army builder with a game or whatever makes it where I want to play it more because I'm able to access. And will it be free? And will all cards be free on that too?
The Iron Builder. So let me tell you a few things. Iron Builder is going to be for free.
Yes.
Everything associated with the usage of Army Builder is going to be for free.
Woo.
Right. Please know that we make games. We don't make books. We make the miniatures and we make the games, and honestly, as Leo, I rather you get more miniatures and have fun with them and paint them as you like and play with them and make new armies, rather than have you pay army builders and books and PDFs and whatever, right? So anything that is not a miniature, you don't pay for.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Right? We really want to make this very clear. The Iron Builder is going to be for free. You're going to have access to it. That's the way it's going to be. Now, the Iron Builder is going to come out in a web application form, so you're going to be able to use it through your browser. Later on, we're also going to be working on native apps. So you're going to be able. Later on, we're going to be having Army Builders in Android and iOS, right? But that's further down the road. There's no release date for that yet. Now, for the web app, we're very close to it being finished, and we have not made we haven't made a release yet about its launch date. But what I can tell you is that it's very close to being finished. So we would want to be like, by the time that we're going to come out, we would like it to be out.
Gotcha.
But it's going to be for free. So
good.
Awesome.
And this one's just for me because on stuff coming out, are y'all going to do novels, stories? Because I know that everybody. There's some people that really thrive on the fluff, and some people that just like, oh, I don't care, just give me the stats and the models. I'm really liking the fluff of this and the world history. Are y'all going to start doing novels on top of this?
I'll do you an even better one and tell you that we already have.
Okay.
So, what, for example, like in the what's new section, what I told you, the Nepenthe series is are three short, about 30 pages to 30 to 50 pages long stories about the 100 Kingdoms and the Spires, and now we're working on the art, and later on we're going to be doing full on novels. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you want to satisfy your curiosity on the lore, you already have four. That's a four. I was doing it five. That's You already have four short stories to go through. Actually, short but not too short. Like the art is like 60 pages, and we have a fifth one coming out.
Okay. And, I thought this was interesting, and I wanted to bring it up. I know we go in a little bit into media section, but I would rather talk about this than media section, no matter what. For all of our listeners, I thought this was interesting because everybody's doing it. Is you're not crowdfunding this. You're not doing a Kickstarter. You're doing, hey, here's our game. Why did y'all decide not to go to a Kickstarter crowdfunding and just do it straight on your own? Because that's a big financial risk.
That's right. Honestly, there are two ways to think about this, but I'm going to tell you how it actually is. Simply because we can't.
Okay.
Simply because we have the ability, the skill, the technical know-how, and the understanding of the industry to not have to put ourselves or anybody else's money at risk by crowdfunding it and by having people wait whenever their pledge will be delivered and have a game ready for you. We wanted you to be able to go to your local store and buy the game. We don't want any hustles about the game. We want you to be able, if you like Conquest, you don't have to pledge anything. We want to prove to you that this is not a project. This is a game and it's here to stay. Crowdfunds are great. They're a good way of doing business it's a good way of amassing capital, but we're not making a project. We're making a game. We're creating a world and we're here to stay.
Awesome. Because that's been a lot of a debate recently, and on a lot of different games that smaller companies are having to do this. Even some larger companies crowdfund most of their stuff, and I thought that was interesting that y'all are not doing that. Guys in the audience, if you have any questions, get them out real quick because we're about to go to media section, and I want to make sure we get everything that you want. If you're listening to this and you want to comment later, please go ahead and find us on Facebook and send us something on Facebook saying, hey guys, I had a question. Could you find out what's going on with this? And we will get in contact with Leo and say, hey, Leo, they want to know why can't they just kill the models in one swing of a sword? And, we'll do it. Are y'all planning on, because this comes into the fact, because, there's going to be a ton of questions. Are y'all going to be doing a forum or, a place where people can post and ask questions on your Facebook or on your, your personal page? Are y'all planning on doing that?
First of all, let me say something that when you guys send things to our Facebook page, it's very important to say that I'm one of the people that read it. Right? So when you send things and you address them to me, I honestly read them on my phone. Like they come to me. So, and one of the reasons I want to say this is because I would like you to know that I would like you to know actually the face behind the Facebook, right? Yeah, there are people that I signed there will tell me, you get X amount of messages and will bring them to me, but they will come to me and I will read your questions and I will make sure I answer them. So if you have questions about the game, that's what the community manager, that's what I do for the company. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to answer your questions. So please make sure you send everything and you ask me whatever you want to ask me. But later on, yes, there's going to be a forum. There's going to be there's going to be places for you guys to ask all of your questions and use as a database from each other, right? To be able to reference and ask and have a ready place to get answers for your questions. But until then, Facebook and our social media is a great place to do that. They come to me, I read it, and you can get a personal answer from me.
Sweet.
And be sure about your question.
Awesome. There is no other questions. We're going to jump into the media section. We only got about 15 minutes left, and we're going to have a spoiler-free discussion on Avengers Endgame, so don't go anywhere. We're not going to leave it. No spoilers. But we're going to just leave it on this screen. Leo, since you are the guest, do you have anything that you did media-wise that you would like to talk about? Book you read, movie, music, anything that just was awesome that you think these people need to look at or avoid?
Para-Bellum related or overall?
Overall.
Overall, man, like I was talking to some friend about, I'm really behind on certain things. Like I didn't watch I haven't watched the second episode of Game of Thrones, although I was really stoked about the first one. And then like I'm like the worst person to talk about this, man. Like I'm so behind on all these different things. Like when we were talking before, like you were saying about all the things to watch. Like you guys, I'm like, oh, good. Like, let me ask you guys if there's anything I should watch, because I'm like, I'm so behind these. So unfortunately, but I'm gonna be watching Endgame actually, if not today, the day after tomorrow. So hopefully, I'm gonna get my Marvel fix. I'm gonna get that by then.
I did have one last question. I want to do this. Dark and Light 74 says, will y'all have a volunteer program or like a, someone that's going to pimp the game, or are y'all just doing this straight on yourselves?
In a way, we've already had volunteers to help us out. We had volunteers in the United States, and we also had Battle Bunker Schwesheim in Germany that they helped us in throughout Essen-Spiele. We've posted about looking for volunteers and of course rewarding them, and as we did reward the volunteers in the United States to work with us. And perhaps these are going to be the volunteers that are coming to help us right now. If they'd like to continue and they get to meet us in person, they're going to be the same volunteers that are going to be, if they would like to, spearheading the programs later on. So when we post about volunteering programs, you guys, whoever is interested into that, should get in touch with us. And if you get in touch right now at the beginning, you're going to be one of the very first people to be considered to be spearheading any sort of program. So now It's a good chance. You put your faith in us by volunteer. We want to make sure we give you back whatever we can.
Nice. Dark and Light 74, he says his name is Ian, and just wanted to know that and to ask that question. John, do you have anything that's not in-game related?
Gonzo, I watched 4 superhero movies in the past 2 weeks and change. 2 0 stars and 2 0 space herpes and 2 2s. I think we can pretty much just talk about Endgame, though. The rest we can cover later.
Okay, because I only had a few things, but we're going to go with Endgame. This is a no spoilers. We're not going to ruin it for anybody.
Not going to spoil a damn thing.
But we are going to have a spoiler episode where John, Kathy, and I will be doing it separate. And, of course, we'll blast it out, don't listen. This is the spoilers unless you want to get spoiled.
No, spoilers.
So I'm going to go with my first part of this and of my in-game review. And I'm going to say, holy fuck, it was good.
Yeah, it was... it's tough to say that a movie was perfect, but, anything you can have a problem with this movie, you're just quibbling on. It is as close to perfect as we ever were going to get in a movie.
I agree, 100%. It did not feel like 3+ hours to me.
Nope.
I was like, whoa, it's almost been 3 hours. This is balls good. This is what I want to see. It very much reminded me of, at the end of it, I was sitting there, I was thinking, I was like, this reminds me of Return of the King. That feel I got, from Return of the King, of all the, badass fighting and everything going on. I was like, yeah! I actually, at one point, said, fuck yeah. Out loud in front of a bunch of people. And I was like, oops, I said that a little loud.
Oh, man. Right here. I'm hyped now. I'm not gonna see it for today, but like you made me so hyped about it. It's like I really liked the first movie a lot, in the sense that it was very interesting to see like Thanos like actually succeeding in whatever he was that he wanted to do, right?
Correct.
And so and he did it in such a brutal way. He's like, I was gonna get all the Infinity Stones. I'm gonna snap my fingers. I'm gonna do what I came here to do, and he did it. And that was such such a cliffhanger right there, because you're like, what just happened? We're not used to the bat in quote unquote. He's not like in whatever the antagonist succeeding so clearly and so cut and dry in what he wanted to do, and so you're like, this cannot end here. I want to make sure. I want to know whatever it is that's going to come, right? So that's I'm pretty hyped about what's coming up.
Yeah,
It was legit good. There was so many times I was like, yeah, yeah. Oh, you're fuck you. This one rides
it. Ending to the series. It's a good ending to the to their first super overarching plot. There, I'm sure they're gonna be happy to do some smaller things. Because honestly, this was such a big undertaking that it's a shock it didn't fail. I mean, they really went all out and they delivered. The movie does have a lot of build-up. People say there are some quote-unquote slow moments, but if you're invested in these characters, they don't feel slow at all.
No, and I can agree. If you're going to watch it in the theater, take your pee break at about an hour 20 in.
No. Take your pre-break beforehand.
Yes.
Don't bring a drink in. Just adult the hell up. Make it through the movie.
Some people can't, but if you have to and you feel like you need to, make sure you do it, an hour, 20, hour and a half. That way, because once that time hits, it's all a full blast ride all the way through.
Yeah, and it's really kind of weirdly structured. It has a relatively short first act, and then the second and third acts are much longer. And I had to pee about most of the way through the second act, through the third act. It was not pleasant, but don't do that. And then do not stay to the end of the credits. When they start just rolling the credits normally, you can leave. There's no end credit scenes.
There is, sort of. There is a sound, but it's not. There is no stinger like usual. There is a sound, and you don't have to sit to watch it. Just Google it.
I had to sit to watch it just because my bladder was like, "No, you're not moving for a couple minutes."
I will also say that this was a good emotional roller coaster from start to finish.
Yep, and I do really like the fact that pretty much anyone they felt like they really needed to get back, they got back. It's
was that a spoiler-free statement?
Yeah. I mean, it's actor-wise. Anyone they needed to get back, they can get back. I mean, it was great. There's only one actor who it looks like they've refused, and that was in Infinity War. They didn't get Hugo Weaving back to play the Red Skull guarding the Soul Stone from Gamora and Thanos. That seems to be the only one, and that's fine. They didn't really need him. It's CGI. Why is he going to have to go through all the makeup just to do, a couple minutes of things? So that seems like the only actor in any of the movies they have been able to get back, really. So continue that through this.
CGI, graphics, everything cinematography was spot on.
If we're being vague, it's because you really, really cannot go into any details of this movie without spoiling just the way it's set up.
That's the reason why I didn't see any glaring, like, oh, you can tell that that's CGI, or, you could tell this and you can tell that.
Nothing took me out of the movie. And in fact, that was the biggest thing. I am very critical of Infinity War. I mean, as critical as you can be for a movie that I already still gave only, 1.5 space herpes to. I'm really critical of it. I can't. This movie, I can't. I got nothing.
I had more problems with the people behind me and the baby that got kicked out, that was there, than anything else. I had a lady behind me going, "Oh, I'm not going to get swayed by the music," and I went, "Shut up," and she shut up for a bit, and I was like, "Just enjoy the movie, feel the ride, go with it, let it happen."
Banyan had someone behind him who was being a little disruptive.
Now, I did have a few, I think they were probably like 8 or 9, 10-year-old kids next to me. And you could tell one kid didn't know much about the MCU, but the other kid did. And he was like, "Oh, that's so-and-so, and this is why she's there or he's there." And I'm like, okay, I can get past, because they were actually being pretty quiet. But I was sitting next to him, and I can kind of understand that, because that's, when it's a kid, too, he's trying to help his buddy out. But this wasn't the lady that behind me, that anytime something happened, she was like, "Oh, I'm not phased emotionally by that because I'm a hardened person." And I'm like, "Shut your
Good. You
damn
have my
mouth!"
soul. Go away.
Yeah,
There was a guy on Twitter who posted something, and it got to me because people I know were commenting on it, where he said like, "Grown men crying in Avengers, y'all know it ain't real, right?" And I'm like, isn't the purpose of art to elicit an emotional response? If so, they succeeded
yes,
in every way.
yeah. There is a good emotional roller coaster. It does. You know, I sat at the end of it and I go, you know, if they don't make another Marvel movie, I'm
Yeah,
perfectly okay with that.
okay, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm perfectly okay that if they never if they decided to just not make anymore, I wouldn't like it, but I would be okay if they didn't make another one because it was that good of a movie.
yeah. I feel sorry for anyone else who wants to make a shared universe, not because it isn't possible, because Marvel showed you it's possible and pretty much showed you the pinnacle. You're not going to reach the pinnacle. You're going to have to aim for something lower because I don't know how you're going to exceed this.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. I
We're-
did want to say that there
The
was
Lord of the
a
Rings trilogy is really glad it came first.
yes.
Otherwise, it'd be like, ooh, live up to that? Yikes.
I did see a funny meme and a dig on DC. Someone posted a picture of all the DC characters and says, "You know which heroes could really take on Thanos?" And it shows all the DC characters, and someone posted, "Well, you have to get through Rotten Tomatoes first." And I was like, "Oh, damn!"
Oh, but no, it's super good. I mean, as you can tell by the way we're gushing over it, it's zero space herpes. It is
Zero.
It is an early lead for best movie I will see in the theater all year.
Yes.
Though Saving Private Ryan is coming out in the theater for the anniversary of D-Day, so it's gonna be a good neck and neck fight there.
I don't know that it was really good, guys. Like I said, Kathy, John, and I are going to do a spoiler post about it, and we will let you know, and we will definitely, you know, don't watch this if you haven't seen it already, because you really can't say a lot about it without messing up, and we don't want to.
No, we don't mess up for anyone.
No, we're not. You know us. It has to come out on DVD before we'll do spoilers, or at least a decent amount of time.
Sometimes not even then.
Yeah. But I mean, zero space herpes for me. I had a blast. I laughed. I cried. I cheered. Like I said fuck yeah in the middle of the theater in front of a bunch of people. I was that excited. And I can't wait to see it again.
I can wait because it's only tomorrow. Not Brushhead Dave didn't see it, so I'm like, hey, you'll know how good or potentially absolutely train wrecky it is, but if I want to see it again with you. Yeah. And as soon as I got out of theater, I'm like, so when are we seeing it on Monday?
Leo, before we get out of here, where are y'all headed next? What do you got planned for your next trips or anything? What do you got lined up for your next things coming around?
So we have an expo. You have the UK Expo. That's the beginning of June, June 1st. And then August we have Gen Con, so we're going to be there. So we'll be more than happy to see you guys and see the members of our audience there, and they can come up to us and ask us whatever they like. And after that, it's again Germany. You know, we have the usual cycle. We have Essen, and then we have Nuremberg, and then we have there's a pretty like very loaded schedule. But the next expo we have, we're going to be seeing the people in the UK through UK Expo, and then as I said again Gen Con in August. Actually, it's going to be our first year in Gen Con, so we're going to be seeing you guys there.
I'm going to try to make it there as quick as possible because I want to go to Gen Con because I have a lot of people I'm going to talk to. Guys, like I said, we didn't do a pre-ramble because Leo is over the pond in an 8-hour difference, and we want to make this man have some free time. We will be posting this up on Facebook and Muse on Mini site and on YouTube, so people can get it and see the not only the video but the audio. Of course, we'll tag everything and let everybody know. Leo, thanks a lot for coming on, man. We really appreciate this. This is amazing for you to be on here.
Thank you guys. Once again, thank you guys for having me. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, we're part of the same community. I want to talk with you guys. I was really happy to be able to come here and answer all of your questions rather than have to do it through Facebook or via through email or text. I appreciate it. I appreciate this a lot more, and it's always it makes me very happy that you guys want to know about the game, and it makes me very happy to answer your questions. So thank you for having me.
Maybe let's see. When June rolls around and everything released, maybe we can have a release party and we can talk about it and everything and kind of get in. And this time you could have, you could be off clock. Maybe grab you something to drink too instead of just water.
Yeah.
So guys, that's going to be it for today. We hope you enjoyed it. Check us out on Facebook or Patreon or any of our other social medias. Make sure you go check out Para-Bellum and check out Conquest. Their website is www.para-bellum.com. You can find all their information, all the rules, models. You can find everything that's coming out, the factions, and everything that's going to be happening with them. Check them out on Facebook. Say hi to them if you see them anywhere. So wave at them, give them a big pat on the back. It's very hard to get into the miniature game scene, and it is a challenge to make something really good, and we think this is going to be a really good game. For other than that, for More Than Dice, I'm Gonzo.
I'm John.
And I'm Leo for Para-Bellum. Thank you guys very much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, indeed.
And we got our dance music going on. If you can hear us, we expect that. We know you can.
Yep, we talk over these.
We talk over the outros. What? John, did you say something?
No.
Why not? Leo, did you say something?
Okay, so now I'm going to start giving out all the spoilers. No, just kidding.
Oh, now the spoilers are now? Oh, well, hold on. Spoilers are now.